I've been involved in classic car restoration for a number of years now, and the one thing I've always found really sad is the fact that so many potentially brilliant projects end up started but never finished. They're left abandoned under tarpaulins and on axle stands, simply to rust in peace. So, I've decided to put my own restoration projects on hold for the time being, and over the next 12 months, my mission is to help inspire and motivate some other enthusiasts to actually achieve their restoration dreams. 5 very different projects, all with fixed deadlines, and the clock's ticking. Coming up, a dream which, like so many, begins life down the pub. Paul Graham Clark plans to restore the wreck of an off-roader and then drive it 15,000 miles across Africa. It's the trip of a lifetime, but not for the faint-hearted.
My biggest concern is somebody pointing a gun at you. I just want to be able to do something that I've always wanted to do in a vehicle that I just absolutely love.
Very rare in the UK, it's a classic 1981 Toyota Land Cruiser that's on its last legs. It's been driven all the way from Africa to the UK and has been round the clock. Superficially, it looks okay-ish, but underneath, it's knackered.
I just want to feel I've got my feet back on African soil, you know, in a good, old, solid truck, and it'll be my baby.
Paul is an amateur enthusiast with limited restoration skills.
Can I get the thing off?
But help is at hand from experienced garage owner and friend Chris.
The deal was I'd let Paul have some space in the workshop, rent some space off me, where he could get stuck in and do the work himself with us helping out on the structural side of things.
Paul's plan is to restore the whole vehicle in just 10 months' time before he sets out on his epic Trans-Africa adventure. He expects it to be tough, and boy, it will be. Even his hardened drinking buddies think Paul must be mad.
It's a whole load of hassle. In one word, frightening. But what an adventure.
When it all goes wrong, we'll be
remembered, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, I knew that was a Land Cruiser because I meet up with Paul to try and find out about his affection for Toyota Land Cruisers, which began apparently from a very early age in South Africa, where he was brought up. So why is he so in love with them?
Basically, because they were built very, very simply. I mean, you know, everything about them is very bog standard. Built beautifully, they are built robustly.
I think it's the first one I've ever seen in the UK. You just don't see Toyota Land Cruisers.
No. They were never imported into this country. This one, in actual fact, is more than just special to me because it's actually from my hometown.
What, from East London?
Yeah. CE is the abbreviation for Cape Province.
Yeah.
E for East London.
Right, okay. So and it was in this condition when you got it?
Yeah.
There's the other clip off to the side?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it looks a little bit manky at the moment, but these things, you know, they turn over first time, they just don't give up on you.
He really is smitten.
I love these cars.
The Land Cruiser was born in 1951. Inspired by the American World War II Jeep, it was manufactured by the Toyota Motor Company and became its longest running model line, and is still in production today. It was very popular because it was tough, very difficult to break, very reliable and easy to repair, which meant it was perfect for harsh terrains. By the 70s, it had overtaken the very British Land Rover as the four-wheel drive choice for most of Africa, where it sold in huge numbers. In fact, it was the vehicle that saved Toyota from imminent bankruptcy in the 1950s. In the UK, they are incredibly rare, and finding parts could well be a problem. Are you a good mechanic, though? I mean, you're taking on, obviously, not only this drive... Let's put the trip aside.
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah.
Are you up to the job of completely restoring one of these?
That's a very naughty question. I'm not.
It's very obvious. It's a kind of obvious
it's very
question.
obvious, but, you know, I'm not a trained mechanic. But there again, I know my way around these cars really well.
Your lives are going to be dependent on the fact that these vehicles are reliable.
Mechanically, I think I'm okay. Mechanically, I think I can handle most things.
Okay. So I can see why you love it, although I have to say, you've got no aircon.
You've got aircon in here. It's one of these. There you go.
Oh, yeah, it's climate control.
Proper, you know. Flick the switch with your foot. You've got air flowing through. What better sort of air conditioning could you ask for? And that's the whole thing.
Functional thing. Paul's wife, Barbara, couldn't feel more differently about the wreck that's clogging up her driveway. Has Paul kind of broached the subject of actually doing the restorations up here?
Well, over my dead body. I don't want it here. Two years or so, we had a Toyota Land Cruiser sitting under the trees, and it had its own, like, moss culture there. The day that it went was like, you know, relief, you know. So it's out of sight, out of mind, and I'm fine.
The solution? Taking Paul's rust heap over to his mate Chris, who's let him use a garage to do the restoration. Paul's a lovely bloke, but boy, does he go on and on and on about driving these Toyota Land Cruisers. So, I thought I'd give him a treat.
This thing is just a beast. Oh, wow. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Am I happy? Ecstatic. You know, there's nothing better than being in the African wild, driving on these absolutely bumpy roads.
Dream on, mate. Before Paul gets anywhere near an elephant, there's a heap of work to do. Paul's budget for the whole restoration is 15 grand. He's hoping that he can salvage a lot of the rusty panels, but until he's completely stripped the car to the bare chassis, he won't know what other parts he can save. But with a shortage of UK models to pick spares from, anything he can't restore will have to be bought as new, which could cost a lot. Can I offer you a tip about this kind of project? Yeah. My tip would be, when you come up with dreams in the pub, leave them as dreams. Right, hang on. Bloody hell, that's heavy.
Yeah.
3 hours in, look at what we've got off in 3 hours.
Amazing. And it's a hell of a lot better than I thought. I'm dead honest with you. I mean, I was expecting to see gaping holes. When you look down here, I mean, this is pretty solid.
This
will be
good.
This will shot blast up quite nicely.
This is good.
No.
But it's quite exciting to get it to this level so quickly, isn't it? I mean, I think it's always good for a morale boost in the early stages of a project to really attack it, get it to bits, because you're on a high then.
That's for sure. But I think the intriguing thing is, what still fascinates me about these vehicles is that they are so actually simple to work with.
Oh, I tell you, that is a really good feeling. The sun on your face at the end of a few hours of hard graft, pulling a car to bits. But day one of a dream that takes you all the way overland to South Africa is just the start of a massive, massive logistical and practical challenge. Now, Paul's got all the enthusiasm to make it happen, but I'm concerned as to whether in 10 months he really will manage to get this little lot back to Africa. Restoring a wreck is a much bigger challenge than most people anticipate. So I'm on a mission to help motivate enthusiasts.
Oh, wow. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.
People like 51-year-old South African Paul Graham Clark. He's restoring a beaten-up 25-year-old Toyota Land Cruiser. He's hoping to do the work himself under the watchful eye of experienced garage owner and mate Chris.
We're just about there, ready to have it rolling.
Paul wants to have the Land Cruiser ready to roll in just 10 months so he can set off on his risky journey across Africa.
This side of Eritrea.
Eritrea, isn't that a war zone?
Unfortunately, that's Africa for you.
A month in and already, Paul has stripped the Land Cruiser's all-important chassis and has had it blasted. This is the backbone of this rugged off-roader, and Paul and Chris were hoping it was sound, but the years have taken their toll.
The real biggest problem of the whole lot is this front cross member, because as you can see, it's massively rusted, where the water and the moisture's got between the two skins, the inner and the outer, and this is beyond repair.
The old cross member has to be removed completely by forcing the chassis apart with a hydraulic jack.
That's headed.
They transplant a replacement section from another chassis and fix it rigidly in place. Without a strong chassis, Paul can kiss goodbye to getting across Surrey, let alone the Sahara. Paul's work plan is to get all the mechanical and structural bits sorted first, as sourcing spares could take time. The bodywork he'll tackle over the coming autumn. The removed steel cab has also been blasted. Bad news here as well. The floor's rusted through and will need patching. Not an easy job for a virgin welder. Paul gets to work stripping the rear axle, which should be bomb-proof, designed to take serious off-road punishment. But on this one, Chris spots a fatal flaw.
If you look on this tooth, you can see there's pitting on the face there.
Yeah.
No, that's sort of the end of the road for the crown wheel, basically. That's enough. You don't need to see any more than that. Well, the crown wheel's scrap. You know, it's not worth doing anything with, because this is your lifetime's dream adventure, and you don't want to be let down by the vehicle.
Ouch, that sounds expensive.
It's probably going to cost, I imagine, £400 to £500. But I'm surprised to find it in such bad shape, because there are such massive axles on these things.
I want something to be reliable. Don't want to be able to have to pull one of these things apart in the middle of nowhere.
The boys move swiftly on to the tank-like petrol engine. Paul needs some good news here. It may have crossed Africa once, but it needs to do the return journey.
Is that bad? In all honesty.
Well, yeah. Any chip in the bore is the end of the bore.
Is that new pistons or just piston rings?
New pistons.
That's expensive then. They aren't cheap.
Well, if you've got the engine this far apart,
he's probably underestimated the amount of work. We've just pulled the engine apart, and that's going to need a rebuild now. And there's he was hoping the engine would be in better shape than it is, but it's going to need a rebore, new pistons. So if you're that far into it, it's a complete rebuild.
There's a shell.
When they examine the crankshaft, things go from bad to, well, disastrous.
Me, look at that. Yeah, look. That's just sharp metal there.
absolutely hammered, isn't it?
Oh, wow. Really, really.
Because that's probably the end of the crank, it's really mauled it. The bottom line with this is that now we may have a problem with the crankshaft.
I was hoping that it was going to be rather more simple, but it's not going to be that. I tell you what, if the gearbox is like this, I think I'll start pulling my hair out. I've got a little bit of a bag of worms here for a moment. What I don't want is to be spending like $3,000 on an engine. I can't just keep going on and on and on and, basically putting brand new stuff in. It's just going to be ridiculously expensive. My pockets are only so deep, they don't run to, the depths of Loch Ness or something.
So far, it's looking costly, and they've only just got going. I have to say, when it comes to Land Cruisers, particularly the old ones, I am not a great fan, but that's because I've never driven one. I've never actually been very close to one, but I'm hoping to change all that. I've been looking through magazines, books, and on the internet to find one that I can actually have a play in. And at the moment, I'm drawing a complete blank. It seems that old Land Cruisers, in the UK at least, are as rare as hen's teeth, so I'm going to have to go further afield. But I have managed to track one or two of them down just a couple of 100 miles across the North Sea. In Holland. Morning. I've been invited over by a bunch of Dutch enthusiasts to discover just why these vehicles are so popular. My host, Mr. Eric Hellerman. Eric's taken his own Toyota all over the world and is used to extreme off-roading. In fact, his love affair with the Land Cruiser is nearly as bad as Paul's.
Oh, well, I've driven here and there, just through North Africa, mainly through North Africa, one or two times in Asia and North America.
How many thousand kilometres?
Well, anywhere between 500 and 600,000, I believe, I think. I've never counted them.
How often has it broken down you've had to fix it?
Never.
Never?
Simple as that, never. It's as simple as that, never.
You know, you're beginning to convince me.
Good.
It might be worth having one of these.
It is. I've driven all sorts of off-road vehicles all over the world, but this is the off-road vehicle.
So Eric, why do you love Land Cruisers so much? Because at the end of the day, they are pretty basic machines.
They are rather basic machines, Mark, of course, but this is a car you buy for life. The sturdiness of the thing, the Sherman tank-like qualities of the thing, they're amazingly strong. I belong to a Toyota Land Cruiser Club, and we have members there who have cars which have done 1.2 million kilometers without major revisions.
I have to say, it's actually quite comfortable, this.
Is it?
Yeah, it's better than I thought it would be.
It grows on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Its claim to fame is that it went up Mount Fuji, and people still talk about it in Japan.
It is fun, I have to say. It's
It is, isn't
so
it?
car-like, I can't believe it compared to mine, but it's certainly competent. But when you look from here, if I was to cover that over, take the badge off,
Yeah.
to all intents and purposes, this is a Jeep.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Of course, Toyota improved enormously on the design.
This is actually quite luxurious in here, Eric.
It is,
isn't
very much so.
It's the executive model. Just take me round the basic layout of the cab.
Well, as you see, it's all very simple, very straightforward. It's like an airplane. Every switch has its own function. It doesn't double up. There's no funny electronics here. Everything works. You pull it in, you pull it out, and it's there. It's simply a very functional dashboard. Simple.
This is great. I'm getting to love this vehicle more and more, Eric, I have to say. Paul's now been working on his Toyota for 3 months. The chassis is now fully painted, and what a difference.
And this is the state that will stay in until we get the rolling chassis, and then we're toying with the idea of putting like a stone chip guard on it, because this is going to take a bit of a battering as well. Look at it. The finish on this is beautiful. It's all ground down. It's like a brand new cross member. This wouldn't have even come out the factory in this condition. So, well chuffed.
The axles have been completely rebuilt and painted with new front and rear diffs. Things are moving on. Now they only need the parts for the front and rear suspension, and they have a rolling chassis. I can't wait.
The FJ40 and FJ45.
Only I have to.
Regarding the parts that we've been talking about, all the list that you sent me is absolutely fine.
A month later, and
There's a couple
still
of
Paul is
queries
waiting
that
for the
I've got.
parts to come from Australia.
But are we going to be able to get them in time? I mean, we need to have this chassis rolling, I would say within the next 3 weeks to a month, no later.
He's told he'll have to wait maybe another 3 months. Time's running out, and the parts aren't cheap either.
How long's a piece of string? I think if I start actually adding up every pound that I've spent on it, I'll probably pack it in now.
As autumn arrives, there's still no news on the spare parts. The only job Paul can tackle back in his own garage is fixing the rusted cab, which is proving a nightmare.
A hell of a lot more difficult than I thought. A lot more difficult, because bodywork is not something that I've, not on this scale. I've never done it on this sort of scale, ever.
Paul struggled to find replacement panels, so he's painstakingly removing all the rusty old sections and patch repairing with new sheet metal. It's taking ages to get right, but it will be worth the effort, so long as Paul can pull it off.
Once this is on, I'll be dead chuffed, absolutely dead. Then it's just, I should be fairly plain sailing.
To try and speed things up, Paul's invested in a neat bit of kit, a plasma cutter, one of my favourite tools.
Without that, I'd be bloody lost, I tell you.
Ooh, he spoke too soon though.
It's not cutting, so it cut the first time, fine. No, I don't know what the problem is.
Refusing to be beaten, Paul soldiers on with a more traditional but time-consuming method: a pair of tin snips. With just 4 months to go till the March deadline, I get called to a crisis meeting at the workshop. Still, no parts have arrived, and the delays mean the whole trip to Africa could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, they're not going to arrive in 3 weeks.
No.
I'm going to, I asked the guy to stay.
You're actually going to need them to arrive in 3 weeks if you're going to hit March, I think. So, you're going to... If March is the deadline, things have to start happening quickly. You're going to go on the dream, you're going to go and drive in Africa, absolutely, but it just seems to me, from your point of view, half of this dream is the fact that you want to build this thing. It's actually the vehicle, it's your passion. The big thing to me is now, can they stick to the schedule? When you start plotting it out week by week, you suddenly realise how much there is to do, and if you miss deadlines on a week by week basis, this project will not happen, and that's going to be the next big test for Paul. And he said he'll give up all his spare time to work on this, but that's a huge challenge. Got to keep our fingers crossed. Next time, I arrive at the garage and I'm shocked to find no work happening on the Toyota. Chris? Completely dead. What the hell's going on? It's all at a standstill at the moment.
I help Paul plan ahead for the trip of a lifetime that's not without danger.
You need a towing ramp. So if you get really bogged in the sand, someone can actually get you out without getting bogged himself.
And Paul's budget goes sky high, which threatens the whole project.
I'd already spent 20 grand. So this has gone totally berserk.